We're going to do our report tonight on our Easter Island trip that took place in April. I don't like calling it Easter Island because that's what the Europeans call it. Its name is Rapa Nui. That's its name. So we're going to call it Rapa Nui. Is that all right? I may slip up, but Rapa Nui report, it's ours, so it works. But April 2nd to April 14th, I went to Easter Island, Rapa Nui, and I was there for a little while. The plan was to go with Kara, to go with me. That didn't happen. Airfare was just insane, so we had to make some changes, and ended up that I went by myself to Rapa Nui. You guys have seen this picture before. There it is, in the middle of nothing. Lots of blue. There's the island itself. Here's another view of the island. That's one of the 3 volcanoes that makes up the island. That's fresh water down in the center of that volcano that is no longer active, by the way. There's 180 volcanoes, but none of them are smoldering, so it's all good. But that's actually where they used to get their water at one point. They'd have to walk. It's 200 meters, just in case you're wondering. It's 200 meters from the top of that down into the bottom of that, and pretty steep, so not fun. You guys think you have chores? Imagine carrying water out of that. No, thank you. So here's a view of the city. Hungaroa is the name of the city that's there. There's a new census. I've been telling you wrong for the last couple of years because there's a new census out, and there's just over 9,000 inhabitants on the island that live there year-round. Yeah, they're multiplying. So there's a lot of people moving in from mainland Chile. The government's making it easier for people to be there. So a lot more inhabitants than what we had once thought. So the new census is out, just over 9,000 that live there year-round. But there's 60 to 70,000 people that visit the island on a yearly basis. So they have planes coming in all the time, big planes. Lots of tourism. And here is sort of the main strip. Can y'all make that out very much as far as detail? But there's not a whole lot going on here. I mean, it's a very simple town. Not a bunch of flashing lights or anything like that. I think 25 miles an hour is about as fast as you're going to go, or would want to go in that area. There's sometimes wandering groups of horses that would just meander down Main Street, and that's normal. Nobody looks at that as though it was strange. So it's very laid back, as you can imagine, type of atmosphere. But the work we do and what we're trying to do is get in touch with people, make contacts with people, talk with people. You'd imagine that transmitting a message to somebody needs to be face-to-face contact, right? And so that's what we're trying to do. And in this situation, and I got to spend more time than I normally do on the island and more time by myself on the island than I normally do, but it allowed me to go and move and just be with people and create relationships, and then kind of also bolster and build up some of the relationships I've already had while I was on the island. This is where I stay when I'm there. This is Peaky's house. I'll show you a picture of the family in just a moment. But this is where I stay. This is my door. And this is where I stayed. I cleaned it up just for the picture. So, but very, very simple means. Didn't have hot water this time. That kind of come and goes. But it's a good place. Peaky feeds me all the time while I'm there. So the foods, you eat what she serves. When I'm on the island, I take advantage of the fares. You get a lot of tuna for very cheap. You get tuna on the cheap while you're there. So I eat probably my own weight in tuna while I'm there. Most of the time in ceviche, in the raw form. And there was one day where I apparently had just too much of it, and so there were some issues. And Peaky made soup. She made stew for me. She knew I was having issues, so she made stew, and she made like tripe stew. So like a tripe, anybody? It's the insides of cow. So lots of vegetables. So I'm eating this thing, and so she piles the food on. She doesn't just she doesn't let you pick, she just piles it on. And I'm eating this, and she's looking at me like, is he going to eat it? And I know what she's doing. You've been there before where somebody gives you something and you're wondering if, so she's wondering if I'm going to eat it. And I started eating it and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so I kind of put it over to the side of the, and she started looking at me. She said, hey, Gringo, you're not going to eat your food? And I said, Peaky. I said, you know I've eaten everything you put in front of me, but I just can't do this. I can't do this today. But she takes very good care of you, and part of her persona is she likes to serve, and she likes seeing everybody happy, and she likes feeding everybody. She'll just whip up food if you come in, and if you think you've eaten enough, Peaky will make sure you've eaten more. So she's one of those types of individuals. But here they are. Some of these people, from your far right, you have Luis, that is Peaky's husband. You have a visitor who is Marco, who is visiting at the same time. So she kind of runs like a hostel, and so he was visiting there that time. And then Andrea is in the middle, and Uri is behind Andrea. Uri is Peaky's son. He is one of the members. He's your brother in Christ. Andrea is his girlfriend, and then Peaky is to the left of Andrea there. You see her, and then another visitor that was there at the time, and her name escapes me. But anyway, we would eat together and share together. Every person that stays in Peaky's place always gets an invite to our Bible studies at night. At night, they have this custom to eat what they call once, which is it's like a light dinner before you go to bed. It's like a Hobbit thing, I think, because it's not really dinner, but it's anyway. So we have tea and some bread and whatever was left over from the day, and that's when we usually would study at night. We'd study in the afternoon around lunchtime. We'd study at night before bed, and anybody who's in the house gets an invite to come. Sometimes the tourists would come, sometimes they wouldn't, because they're on vacation, They don't want any of this God stuff. But Peaky makes sure that there's an invitation, and sometimes they study, and they're interested, and sometimes they're doing it just to be nice to Peaky. But she's very a go-getter as far as passing out the invites to these type of events. And so this particular time, this was actually saying goodbye to these guests as they were leaving the next day. This is Laura. This is Peaky's daughter. I studied a lot with her. This is the first time I've really studied consistently with her. She's kind of struggling with some things in her life and wanted to know what the Bible has to say about it, and was really receptive to that. Very close to being baptized. There's some things she needs to kind of work on in her life, but she's very close to being baptized, and it's good to see the family. It's starting in the family and working out, which is, we've seen that in the Bible somewhere, I think, where households are converted, and that's kind of how this is working out. I told you we have to build relationships, so this is me building relationships. That's what that is. There's a guy in a weird-looking hat in the middle of the boat. His name's Hotu, okay? Hotu is a serious dude. You don't mess with Hotu. Some people call him Commando because he was part of the Chilean Special Forces. He was in sort of the Chilean Secret Service as well. He's trained with the U.S. Special Forces in Panama. You don't cross Hotu. And he's actually Peaky's brother, and I got to know him by fishing. And so every time I go, I usually go out overnight fishing with Hotu, and a friend of his came with us that time. And we're 5 miles off the coast. I don't know if you can barely see it in the picture. We're 5 miles off the coast there, fishing in about 200 meters of water, and hand lining for fish on the bottom, which is another story altogether. So Hotu is an important individual. You wouldn't recognize him as being an important individual, seeing him in this boat. But there is the mayor of the island, and then there are 6 kind of councilmen on the island. And Hotu is one of those councilmen. And Hotu is a guy to know if you want to get things done. And so I actually had lunch with him on Sunday when I was there. He invited me over for a barbecue, which was barbecued fish. It's like island barbecue fish, you know what I'm saying? You just kind of clean out the insides and throw it on the grill. So he had me over. And he had his friends were there, and we talk when we're in the boat. You're in the boat with somebody all night long fishing. You're going to talk. And we talk about different stuff. We've talked about religion, and I kind of let him be the judge of how far we go with that. But he told his friends, he said, he always calls me Gringo. That's my name, Gringo. Walking down the street, Gringo! Anyway, so he said, this Gringo never plagues me with the Bible. And then all heads turn to me. Whoop! All of a sudden, the questions happen. Are you a Mormon? No. Are you a Baptist? No. What are you? I don't even know. What are you, a Seventh-day Adventist? No. And so we start talking about what the church is and that kind of stuff. But he said, I believe in the Bible, I believe in God, but I haven't seen him yet. So we're working on Hotu. So here's a relationship we're working on. Again, a very important, prominent individual on the island. He's kind of rough around the edges, but we've all been there, and he can make those changes if he wants to. So this is Hotu, another relationship building situation. Something else we were doing there, the first time actually for me, is to go to the hospital on the island. This is the hospital. Here's kind of the back entrance to the hospital to visit people. We can't obviously take pictures when you're in the hospital. So Anita, and you'll see her in just a minute, her brother was in the hospital. And so we went and visited. And when we went and visited on Sunday afternoon, we just kind of made rounds and wandered around and visited everybody who was sick. If you can imagine, everybody knows everybody on the island. So if you go walk in and say, oh, I didn't know you were in the hospital. So we'd sit and talk with them for a little bit and walk down the hall and see somebody else and kind of peek your head in. It was a peaky, being the guide. I had to kind of work through Peaky and the family. Otherwise, I'm just some gringo, right, walking in. Who's this weird guy walking in the hospital? So I worked through them. And again, always building relationships and talking with people. And Anita's brother wanted to study the Bible and wanted information about the Bible. He's laying there. He has to be in the hospital for like a month. And this isn't like they have like 15 channels and an adjustable bed and that kind of stuff. He just wants somebody to bring in some fruit, visit with them and talk about the Bible and just kind of hang out. That's all he wanted. And so I would go do that with him from time to time, bring in some fruit and just talk to him about the Bible. And so again, always just making contacts with people. What do you do when you go somewhere to study the Bible and to start the church? You just work with people. You get to know people and you share the Bible with those who want to study. It's probably going to be hard for you to make out, but you see the kind of pole sticking up there in the table, and there's a lady with long black hair. That's Anita. I'm kind of taking a picture. So my personal thing, I don't like being like selfie picture with everybody. That's just me. I don't know about you guys, but it just seems odd. Study for Jesus, selfie, hashtag studied with Jesus. So I don't do that kind of stuff. So this is me kind of walking away. This is the last time I saw Anita before I left. I kind of took a picture. So Anita works as a guard. So there's basically the whole island is almost like a national park. And they have guards at different points in the park so people don't do stuff they're not supposed to do. You see this guy here with like 13 cameras. You can probably guess where he's from. And they like get too close to the statues. You can't touch the statues. You can't lean on the statues. You can't breathe on the statues. So there's a line that you don't cross. And if you cross it, Anita blows a whistle at you, and you could actually pay a fine. There are some people who have been escorted to the plane and sent home. Do not pass go, do not collect $200 kind of situation for standing up on the idols and stuff like that. So you can't get near them. So that's what she does. So this is her office. This is where she sits, and this is where she makes sure nobody does what everybody minds the rules. And so we would sit in the evening, and she would watch, and I would read the Bible, and we would study together while she's blowing her whistle at the tourists who aren't supposed to be there. So it was, you never know how you're going to study with people. You never know what it's going to be like. But you're sitting with them, and you're just sharing the Bible with them. And at the end of it, you could not physically study with them enough. Literally, I was studying with 3 and 4 people a day, most days. And you could not study the Bible with them enough. They just wanted to know more, wanted to know more. And it's just so nice to be in a situation where people want to study, instead of sometimes here where you're like, hey, we're going to study the Bible. It's like, oh, you're oppressing me. Don't give me that information, right? So it's nice to be in a situation where people want to hear about God. The message they have to you, I ask them, what would you want? Because I tell them, I go back and give reports about what I do here. I tell them about you guys. I said, there are people in Florida who make it possible for me to do this. They ask questions about you all. What's the church like there? How big is it? And those kind of questions. They want to know about you guys, because I've told them over and over again about how you care for them and are sending people like myself and others that have gone to teach them the Bible, and they are so extremely thankful for you all, for what you've done and sending people to them to study the Bible. They say, we did not know. We knew nothing before you came. We knew nothing, and we would still know nothing if you had not come. And so over and over again, they sing your praises and care for you guys. Even though they haven't met you, they care for you guys because of what you're doing and sending. I'm just the mouthpiece to go, but they care about you and are building those relationships. And since I've been there, we're studying the Bible every Sunday, and we take the Lord's Supper together, and we study and we sing via Skype every Sunday now. And so that's something that's been continuing since I've been back. Today we had some visitors in our worship, Carlos and Adriana. And Adriana has decided that she wants to be baptized. So Lord willing, Udi will be baptizing Adriana this afternoon. So that's kind of, a big deal for that congregation to be now they're doing it. So it's not like they're just waiting for somebody to come and do it for them. They're doing it too. And so again, building relationships and building and encouraging them just to keep doing. You can do it. I told Udi, I said, Udi, you got baptized before, dude, so you know how this works. So anyway, they just need that encouragement when they're there. And we all need some encouragement. I kind of want to close by looking at some things that Jesus said to the apostles in Matthew. Some things to consider as we close up thinking about mission work. Jesus kind of asked a lot of the disciples, if you think about it, he kind of asked a lot of them. Pressure much? I don't know. You guys are like finishing up projects and things like that, testing. Lots of pressure, I understand. But imagine some guy says, hey, you know what? I'm going to have you evangelize the whole world, and there's 12 of you. Good luck. Lots of pressure, right? Lots of pressure. So what is Jesus giving us in Matthew? I want to start in Matthew 9. Here's Jesus talking. You see Jesus' heart here, Matthew 9, 36 through 38. Jesus, seeing the people, he felt compassion for them because they were distressed, dispirited, like sheep without a shepherd. And he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore, beseech the Lord of harvest to send out workers into his harvest. And that's exactly where they were. And they don't say this exactly, but that's where they were. Distressed, dispirited, because they don't know. They don't know. And so we prayed, they have prayed for somebody to come. Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, some other things to think about, some to consider. Jesus says to the disciples, after he's telling them he's going to be sending them out, and he tells them some things that they need to consider. Don't be taking gold, don't take anything, just go and work. Your labor is worth your hire. How to greet the houses when they're there, and how to greet them if they don't accept them. And he says to them, behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, so be shrewd as serpents and as innocent as doves. Now, I don't know if you guys watch National Geographic at all. Anybody in here? National Geographic? Okay. Sheep and wolves normally don't play nice together, right? They don't play nice together. And so Jesus is telling him here, I'm sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, which is, maybe you'd say thank you, I guess, for sending me. Do we understand what he's trying to say? I'm sending you out, and it's going to be harsh. It's not going to be easy, what you're about to do. But be wise and be innocent. Sometimes both are difficult, right? Sometimes both are difficult. Sometimes it's difficult to make the right decision. Sometimes it's not easy to just sit back and not retaliate in something. But in this situation, he's sending them out. And when he sends them out in this particular context, in this limited commission, he sends them out and he tells them, you're going to be taken captive by men. They're going to take you before councils. Your own family members are going to turn you in. And as far as we know in this limited commission, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in this limited commission situation. They come back all happy because, hey, we were casting out demons and we were doing this, and it was awesome. That's how they come back from this experience when he sends them out in this limited kind of commission situation. But he was also preparing them for the fact that when he sent them out in Matthew 28, that they knew this is the same situation. They knew that this was going to be taking place. And he prepares them for that. Sometimes we need somebody just to tell us ahead of time what's going to happen. Is it going to hurt? Okay, so sometimes we need somebody just telling us ahead of time. And in Matthew chapter, the same chapter, in verses 19 and 20, but when they hand you over, do not worry about how or what you are to say, for it will be given to you in that hour, and what you are to say. For it is not you who speak, but it is the Spirit of your Father who speaks in you. Now I realize that, and for us, we don't have this same sort of Spirit that speaks in us. If you've ever been in a situation where you've been tongue-tied and cannot think of the words that you should say in that moment, it would be nice to have this sort of matrix ability to just have the message there ready to download and tell people. We don't have that. But we do have the message, don't we? Is it possible to prepare enough to have the message in here and in here so that when people do ask the questions, we are saying what the Father would have us to say? It's possible. That is possible. Some things to consider. If we look in verses 26, 28, and 31 of Matthew, he says, "Therefore do not fear them, for there's nothing concealed that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. Do not fear those who will kill the body or are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. So do not fear, you are more valuable than many sparrows." Could you pick up on what he's trying to say? Don't be afraid about what you're going to be doing. Don't be afraid because everything will be revealed. Sometimes we're afraid, oh, hey, you know what? I'm going to go do this, and they're going to do this against me, and nobody's ever going to know it. They're going to do this against me, and nobody's ever going to know it. But everything will be revealed. Don't fear those who are able to kill you, because you know what? If you die and you're in the Lord, win-win, right? Because you're going home. I don't have to deal with this anymore. I mean, I'll miss you guys, but I don't have to deal with this anymore. You understand? If we change our perspective, it's a win-win situation. And don't fear, because God cares for you. If a sparrow touches the ground, God knows about it. Much less his own children with every footstep they make. He knows exactly what's going on. And sometimes knowing that somebody knows makes all the difference. And lastly, Matthew 10:37-39, "He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me, and he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. And he who has found his life will lose it, and he who has lost his life for my sake will find it." Sadly, there'll be some of us who has loved others more than Christ on the day of judgment. That's just how it is. He's saying here that there will be some that will have loved family, that will have loved children, that will have loved others more than Christ in the day of judgment. How does that happen? Well, we may not make decisions because of our family members that we know we need to make. We may refrain from making difficult decisions because of our family members that we know we should have made. And I'm not here to tell you that those kind of decisions are easy. By no means. By no means. Sometimes those decisions are very, very difficult. But we need to make sure that we're picking up that cross and following after Him to be worthy of Him. To lose this life, to be able to be found in Him. So tonight the question is presented before you, would you live for him? Would you live for Jesus? I think we sing that song. You've probably sung it before. Would you live for Jesus? Would you live for him? These are the things we need to do in order to have that relationship with him and live faithfully, confessing his name before people, not just once, but at all times. In the relationships you have with people, you need to confess Christ to them because you may be the only outlet they have. God has put you in the lives of individuals so that you can be his mouthpiece. Would you live for him? Would you be that mouthpiece? Please come as we stand and as we sing.